honestly, how I think I took off so quickly is because the community was always my focus. I was a friend. I was a person. I was there to share who I am, and people could connect with me on that level. And so what I have understood and I accept in the business world is people will pick you.
Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. Welcome to another Provider Spotlight episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and my guest today is a CRNA who's working hard to prepare the next generation of nurse anesthesia applicants through her educational academy. Jenny Finnell has been a CRNA for 7 years, and she's the CEO and founder of CRNA School Prep Academy. That's a bit of a mouthful. I'm going to give you credit for that, Jenny. Jenny started CSPA with a very clear mission and goal, for which she's been incredibly successful. However, the challenge of running a business has presented an unfamiliar and charted territory. A skill CRNAs do well is adapt. Today, I'm asking her to share how she's navigated the unknown and how her work in progress is currently unfolding. So thank you so much for joining me today, Jenny.
Thank you, Bobby. I'm happy to be here. And yes, CRNA School Prep Academy is a mouthful. It's funny, after I initially named it that and I started trying to speak it really quickly to my audience, I'm like, man, what was I thinking? But here it is. It's set in stone. So it is a tongue twister. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here today.
No, that's fantastic. And you know, we spoke a little bit before we started recording. You know, I remember helping other applicants and students while I was an SRNA myself and later on a CRNA. When did you start actually thinking about helping the next generation of CRNAs?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I guess, you know, my 7 years as a CRNA, I've mentored a lot of students in the operating room. I did open heart for 5 years. And so I've always had a passion for helping students in a way that felt good for us both. And so I've always enjoyed that aspect of my career as far as mentoring. But it was probably around 2019 when I started being a little more active on social media, to be quite honest, on Instagram mostly. And I had like, my name was like Jenny CRNA or something like that. And I started getting a lot of messages about how to pursue CRNA. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I'll help you. So I started getting a lot of people. I was getting their phone numbers, chatting with them on the phone. And eventually I had about 10 or 15 people that I was spending a lot of time with, back and forth text messages on the phone from all over the country. And I'm like, you know what, I'll make a Facebook group, because that way I'm giving a lot of similar advice and I can speak at one time and not be a broken record, because I was finding myself repeating a lot of things. So I started a Facebook group, and it's called ICU Dreaming About Anesthesia. And I know I try to be clever with that one too. And that one's also kind of a tongue twister, but
no, I love it.
Yeah. And so I did that and started teaching in there with these 10, 15 students. And then before I know it, word of mouth spread and the group grew. And by the time it grew to be about, I would say 3,000 or 4,000 people, I was spending about 20 hours a week in there teaching and kind of burning myself out, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I was working full time. I'm a mom. I now have 3 kids, but we had 2 kids at the time. And I finally decided I had to do something so I could keep doing it. I wanted to be able to keep helping. My students were getting great results. So I was toying with that of how can I do this so I can keep doing this, decrease my hours in the OR, which led me to a course membership, but I ended up going with a membership because what I liked the most is actually connecting with my students, where a course felt impersonable, where a membership felt like, cool, I could be in there, I could be mentoring you, coaching you, connecting with you, hearing from you. And that's why I went with the membership.
No, I love that idea because, you have to do what kind of feeds your soul a little bit. And so if you're feeling already like you're burnt out, you want to lean into the things that really make you feel better about what you're doing. So I completely agree with that. Courses are great and they certainly have a function, but and I had a lot of gratitude when I would help fellow nurses, whether or not I was in school at the time or as a CRNA, but that's a whole lot different from starting a business. So, I'm wondering, obviously you've had some good things go your way and some resistance along the way. What kinds of resistance have you met in getting this thing started? Because it sounds like, I mean, from what you've said so far, wow, this just really took off and it was great and fantastic, and I'm helping thousands of people. I'm sure it wasn't quite that easy.
No, it's been everything but easy. I will say I cried a lot. I actually thought about quitting several times, if I'm being perfectly honest. I remember being in the hospital talking. I had a team of 2. So when I first decided to do this, the first thing I knew is I couldn't do it by myself. I had to have help. I had no tech background knowledge on memberships, MemberPress, WordPress, all of that. Probably one of the first things that I started doing is I started binging podcasts and listening to anyone who's giving advice on memberships, business. I started listening to it all and quickly realized that I was going to get in over my head if I didn't have help from the beginning. So I found a website manager, builder. She develops websites. And then I found a copywriter to help me build the landing page. And those were it. My husband still worked full time. And I started with that and I kind of just took off from there. But what I will say is, I mean, now we're 1,300 members, but, I essentially announced to my Facebook group that we were launching this membership. I recorded it in my car for 14 hours in one day and got the 3 courses I was going to originally launch out. My neighbor actually came and checked on me because it was the only quiet place I had. I mean, we have 2 kids and I didn't have an office. So I recorded in my car all day long. The weekend before we were getting ready to launch, because that's how busy it was. I never had time. I made the courses, but I was doing everything. I was doing the emails. I was doing everything mostly in the business by myself. So it felt crazy, chaotic, and rushed, but we did it and we launched and we got 100 members from the beginning, approximately. And then we kind of just I kept adding content. I kept teaching. And then I actually had a program faculty reach out to me 6 months after we started and wanted to kind of partner up with me. At first, I'm like, wait a minute, I've only been in business for 6 months. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is as sloppy as all get out, but I mean, I'm keep forging on. I keep going. And we're now good friends. He helps me. He's the expert contributor of CRNA School Prep Academy. It's just been I've kind of let it, like what we do, like you said, at CRNA's adapt. I've kind of adapted and I've learned on the go. And yes, it's been stressful. It's been overwhelming. I've shed many tears. Like I said, at some points, I'm like, I don't know if I keep doing this. I was so burnt out. I was working about 70, 80-hour work weeks for the first probably year of the company. I was physically dying. Like I was like, what am I gonna? And then, and then we were talking about having a 3rd kid. And I'm like, how in the heck? But I honestly come back to this place of everything's figure outable. Marie Folio has said that. And I try to adapt that mentality. And I just said, we'll figure it out. And I did invest in business coaching. I do a business coach. Over this last year in 2021, I scaled. I have a team of 7 now. That was a challenge in itself, but I have a team of 7 people and I just hired a VA from the Philippines that I'm onboarding this week. So now a team of 8. And yeah, I'm just going with it. I essentially now have someone who manages my emails, website, tech end of things, funnels, customer service, social media, and community. And I work with the expert contributor. We have a whole team of people who essentially contribute to CRNA School Prep Academy at this point.
Oh, that is so cool. That, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the story of coming from like, oh, I'm going to just record this in my car.
Yeah.
You're like to where you are today. And I mean, that's completely fascinating, incredible. I guess the question here for me is like, so there are a lot of educational companies out there. There's a lot of options that people have for getting education, but I don't know of a whole lot of prep school academies that are out there for, advanced practice nursing.
Yes.
How have you gone about separating yourself from, the crowd and targeting the clients that you're actually looking for? Because you're not looking for RNs who are necessarily, like, okay, well, I'm establishing my practice and this is what I want to do. You're not interested in people who have already gone on to receive, advanced practice status. So how have you gone about targeting those people and then, standing out compared to other potential I mean, I don't even know what else is out there when it comes to prep academies.
There is other options. Now, when I first started back in 2019, there was none that I was aware of, but in the last year, there's been several that has popped up. Several of them honestly have seen what I have done and now are trying to do similar things, which, it's all good. I don't try to let that type of thing ever hinder me from going forward. I essentially focus on my students. I focus on my community. And honestly, how I think I took off so quickly is because the community was always my focus. I was a friend. I was a person. I was there to share who I am, and people could connect with me on that level. And so what I have understood and I accept in the business world is people will pick you, and everyone can have similar products. But if they can connect with who you are, they will buy from you, not someone else. They don't buy for stuff. They buy for the connection. They buy when they feel an emotional pull to who you are and how you can help. And, a lot of what I do, and it's funny, I remember when I first started trying to understand business, I bought the Blueprint Knowledge or by Tony Robbins and Dean Blueprint Knowledge workbook. I'm not even remember what it was called, but one of the things they said was, what's your superpower? And I'm like, gosh, I don't have a superpower. I don't know. I'm just a person. And, but over this last 2 years, what I've discovered, what is my superpower? And it's funny because a lot of this has come to being, I need to self-reflect on who I am as a person, understand how I can lead. And that's been really, really challenging. But I tend to inspire people that I connect with. And that's my superpowers. I can inspire my students to take action. And that's all that's needed. It's funny because a lot of my students already have it within them. They just need someone to just give them that extra, like, yes, you can. And you're right. And yes, take a chance on yourself. And I feel like I'm good at moving people to action. And so that's what I have unique to bring to the table versus others. And don't get me wrong, I feel like I genuinely care so much about other people that I think it shows and they feel heard and they feel seen. And so that's what I feel like I bring unique to this realm of business. But you're right, there is not a lot of competition out there. Will there be? Yes, I'm sure there will be. I say bring it. And I also say we can all work together. I'm very big on collaboration in the sense that, like I spoke to, I get programs involved. I've never wanted this to be a one-man show. It should not be a one-man show. And one thing I realized early on when I started mentoring was I have one experience and one person. There is so much in this community of CRNAs that we have to share. And the more you get that and the more you encompass that, the more you get more people involved, the more value you can provide to your audience. Because like you shared, Bobby, you have a unique journey and unique experience, and you can give that to someone. And so I never want to just be me. And so I am bringing programs into this. I am bringing fellow CRNAs and mentors into my program because I want it to be kind of all encompassing. I want people to be able to relate to who's giving them the advice and guidance.
I love this. This is, I mean, it's so it speaks to me because there's a certain part of this. It's, there's a community basis of this and we're missing some of that. And I feel like there's just, oh gosh, I'm getting a bit tongue tied. I'm not going to lie. But
it's all right.
But like I'm inspired by listening to you. I feel that pull again to help people and to gravitate towards the folks that just maybe they don't see that potential within themselves, but you can, I mean, like when you're working with somebody, you can just tell like, oh my gosh, that person's got it.
Yeah.
And they've figured it out. And then you go talk to them and they're like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yes. Maybe not, and not to, shortcut around the things that people have that they're dealing with on a daily basis, but there's so much talent out there there's so many people that have so much that they could give, that they could enjoy in life. There's a lot to be said for this anesthesia career, that we want people in this career field that are doing great things, that are caring for people. And so when we see that, we want to foster that. And so I love that you're actually, you're focusing on that authenticity, like, hey, look, I'm just a person. I'm here. I'm going to help you out, and look, I make mistakes too. Like I could tell you one thing and you could see another, but at the end of the day, like, this has been my experience. This is what I'm going through. So I think it's fantastic what you're bringing to people, and how you're helping them, and how you've kind of systematized things. You've built a team, and that team is looking out for your customers, your clients, your nurses that you're helping. So
yeah, I've definitely, the team I built, I love my team. And I don't know if this is a good business quality or not, but I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I actually don't like being in the spotlight. But I tend to be the kind of person where I don't really try to have a bunch of people in my life, but I like intimate, close relationships. So I tend to be the person who has like a few really close friends, not a ton of okay friends, but my team is now like my intimate, close friends. And like I said, I just feel like that to me makes my business enjoyable. And it also makes my teammates very happy. And I feel like the happier my teammates are, the more relatable they feel to me, and they feel that they're heard and I listen to them. The more I feel like we can work better together as a team. So that's been very also helpful in our business. My original people are still with me. They could have easily, they had their own businesses, but they have decided to stick with me because they believe in our mission, and, we just enjoy working with each other. So that has also aided to our success. I now have my sister working for me, my husband working for me, my friend my friends since we met when we were 15 years old. I'm 35 now, but so 20 years of being a friend. She moved back home and didn't have a job. I'm like, well, you're really good at, she's my social media manager. She's really good at doing like Canva, and but so it's naturally kind of worked out that way. But even this new hire, I think I've let her know family's my focus. Like, that's the core of my business model, is family, and business has to evolve around that, not the other way around. And I think that has made everyone on my team very happy, knowing that they're working for a company that has family values, essentially.
Yeah. I love that you're creating a business that focuses on that. And I'd love to know where you see this business going in the next few years.
Yeah. I'm very, like you said, I like to go with the flow. I don't, and it's funny, I've been asked this question before. I don't have concrete plans, but I will say, I'm a planner. I'm a big planner. I love to think about what's next. Same with like when you're in anesthesia, what's next, plan for the unknown or what may be coming. I foresee it growing. I think the next big steps for us is we really want to hone in on getting, connecting with nursing students early on, because we see a lot of essentially roadblocks occur from people who miss some steps early on, like the GPA aspect of it, or getting to the wrong ICU, for example. Not connecting and networking with the community, just things that they could help them so much down the road if they know these types of things early on. So I really hope to kind of expand our reach and to connect with more nursing students who are at least considering this profession, so we can help guide them. And I've also been very passionate about staying in touch with my current students. I love watching them go through their programs. And while I don't know what it's going to look like, to what extent it's going to look like, we have been trying to make some strides to help mentor current students, a lot on mindset, a lot on stress management, because those are two areas that I think students run into a lot of they just have problems if they're not addressing these early on prior to starting school. I also work with a financial planner who helps my students plan for school. She does quarterly financial webinars, and she just works with CRNAs. So she's very well versed in what CRNAs go through in school. So I'm always looking for ways to provide value. And so where I see myself in 5 years, I don't know. I see myself continuing to mentor, bring in program faculty. I really want to work closely with schools to understand what they need from us. How can we help them help their future students. I also love the pay it forward mentality. I have a pay it forward CRNA scholarship. So we give a $4,000 away every year, $1,000 per student. And it's not really just about the money. It's about like to get the scholarship, you have to write me a short essay on how you plan to pay it forward as a CRNA. But that's what I envision myself building. So big picture is I'm building pay it forward CRNAs. I'm building people who have mentorship in their hearts, who will go pay it forward as they embark on their CRNA journey, who become mentors, who foster these relationships with aspiring students, who makes our career not seem so scary, because that's what nurses will tell you. They're intimidated by us. They're intimidated by the journey of CRNA. They think that we're just these high up here on the pedestal, but I want to bring us all back down to we're all nurses. We all start here and we're here for one another. You know, nurses help nurses, nurses teach nurses. And so that's kind of where I see my company. The vision of it is to just kind of spread the mentorship mentality.
I love that you're focusing more on that aspect of it. You know, there's a certain reputation for nurses eating their young. And I love that when I see people going out there and they're actively fighting against that particular mentality, because it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to devour each other to feel better about our positions as nurses, nurse anesthetists, whatever. You know, that was something that I always, you know, when I was a practicing CRNA, I wanted to help others and I wanted to bring others along. And one of the things that I did was I tried to show them, I went to mid-year assembly every year, and I was very politically involved for, you know, during my time as an anesthetist. And it was something that I still feel very passionately about, but obviously that only appeals to certain people. You know, and that's the same thing with your business. Like you're going to talk to some nurses and they're going to say, you know what, that looks great. But I don't know if I really want to go through all that. Right. You know, I don't know if that's where I want to take my career, and that's fine. I mean, I had, you know, folks that I was beside in my nurse anesthesia program, they would drop out or whatever, because it just wasn't necessarily their calling. They you know, got to a certain point and they realized this wasn't for them. But, you know, that's something that each of us has to make that individual choice. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I'd love to hear more about, like, if you have others that are wanting to give back to the anesthesia community, you know, how can they really start, you know, taking that process seriously? How can they start going kind of step by step and saying, you know what, I want to give back to this profession that's given me so much, whether that's nursing, nurse anesthesia, whatever. But, you know, how can people start to really connect with those communities that are drawing them in?
Yeah. So I like, and I don't know if I'm going to tell this accurately. I just know it's a saying of, you know, a little boy was walking on the beach and an old gentleman saw him walking, and this little boy was throwing these starfish. There's hundreds and thousands of starfish washed up onto the shore, and he was throwing a starfish back in the ocean one by one. And the older gentleman started laughing at this little boy and said, "Boy, you're not going to be able to save them all," you know. And the boy just said, "Well, I saved that one." And so I think as a CRNA, and you like, well, I don't have a community. I don't have people that I can inspire. I'm just one person. I can only touch one person, but that one person matters. That one shadower matters. That one. So even little contributions go a very long way for the individual that you touched in their life. So I think if you have the mindset that little by little you will help individuals, that's really all it takes. It doesn't take you do anything massive and major. You don't have to start a company like this. You don't have to go out and do anything crazy. If you just help the people and nurture them, just one person, that's a contribution to our community. So I think that's the way I like to look at it, as for how to pass on advice to other CRNAs who want to give back, is to don't worry about just help one person at a time. And if you do get a chance to have a platform, have a voice, go speak at a national convention. What I do, actually, this other CRNAs can do this, is I reach out to nursing schools and say, "Hey, would you like to hear about our profession?" I go in there and talk about what a CRNA does, give them some information, answer their questions. So other CRNAs are doing that, and there are plenty of opportunities to do that. You can even go to high schools and do this for like a career week in a high school, and especially for like underserved areas who maybe don't have the best mentors or mentors that are CRNAs. Go to inner city high schools and talk about a CRNA. I mean, you could change that one. There could just be one student, but you're going to change their life and change their whole family's life, their future. So that's kind of my recommendation is if I'm speaking to you and you want to find ways to give back, there are a lot of ways, and don't worry about not being able to make an impact on thousands of people, because what happens is you make that impact on one person and then you naturally will have more things fall into your lap to help more and more people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've had dozens of teachers along the way that have helped you get to the point where you're at. I can remember the CRNA mentors that taught me how to place an A line. Marty McCullough helped me do that. And, Cliff Gonzalez, I did my one and only shake and bake case with him, with a cancer patient. The shake and bake going on. I remember these moments so vividly. And sometimes that's all it takes is just, being present, being there for somebody who needs you right then and there. Mm-hmm. Gosh, that's such a powerful message. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. And I think lead with heart, if you lead with passion of why you're doing something, whether that's business or anything really, if you will always enjoy it, if you have a passion for it. And, for me, it's a connection with my students. Like that's what really fuels my fire. When I get those messages, Jenny, I got in, Jenny, or like a student who's been rejected time and time again and reaches out to me and thanks me for the fact that I gave them the courage to keep going like that. Those little messages is what really fuels my fire to keep doing this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I do think the personal stories aspect comes big into it. I mentioned to you before, like I was one of those CRNA students who I took the full 170 questions, but the reason I was able to do that and pass it is because my senior mentor also took 170 questions and passed. Mm-hmm. So when I was able to, I was going through that experience and I'm drawing from the experience of somebody else. Mm-hmm. And it helped me get through that moment with confidence and, and I was able to make it happen. And so that was something that was, it's one of those powerful moments in my own life. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you see that all the time with what you're, the folks that you're talking to and mentoring.
Yes. Yes. And what's beautiful about what you just said is it's just that like that spills over, meaning you experienced that one amazing thing and you paid it back to other people down the road. And so that's what's the beauty about mentoring is it does naturally pay it forward, because when you experience that type of gratitude for someone who did something for you, even if that one starfish you got thrown back in the ocean, that one starfish then helps out some other starfish. And so, mm-hmm. It kind of, it's like someone holding the door open for you. If someone holds the door open for you, you're more likely to hold the door open for someone else. It's kind of like a human characteristic where when you're treated well, you tend to treat others well too. And that's why I want bullying to be by the wayside, because bullies breed bullies. Right. So, and that's unfortunate. So the more we can focus in on letting these students experience a good experience during their clinical time, the more likely they're going to go on to be good clinical preceptors themselves.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. So Jenny, I would be remiss if I did not mention your own podcast, which, it's the CRNA School Prep Academy podcast, and it is approaching 100,000 downloads in its first year. I'd love to hear more about this. It's incredible. You're approaching 100,000. I just got over, 12,500 for myself. So I'm like, woohoo. And then, you got 100,000 here. You're obviously speaking to an audience that is thirsting to be heard. So yeah. The connection piece is huge on the podcast. As I had told you kind of behind the scenes, I did recently get a podcast audit through someone, his name is Charlie Valher. And, he gave me some really great advice, but ultimately what he told me was I'm already doing a great job of connecting, but there is a strategy to podcasts that I was kind of missing. So even though I'm speaking really well to my students, he kind of made it really simple. He said, break down your audience into 3 categories and then plan your episodes around those 3 categories. And that's how simple it was. I'm like, and once he said that to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so simple, but I don't know why I didn't think of it that way.
But I essentially take questions that I get from my audience and I do episodes on them for the most part. I get guest experts on there they want to hear from. But I really think the reason why I've been so successful in my podcast is because I started with a decent social media following first. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but community is number one. I think the reason why my business took off so quickly is because I built that community first. And they always say you can build a product, but if you don't have an audience, no one's going to come. You know, you have to build that trust factor first, and then test to see if it's worth selling or worth doing, to see if your audience can resonate. Maybe they're not podcasters, but my audience is podcasters. So
yeah. No, that's very powerful. So, well, I know we're going to be wrapping up here soon. I want to give people a chance to get a hold of you. How can they do that?
Well, probably the best way is to reach out to me on Instagram. You can find me at CRNA School Prep Academy on Instagram. I would tell you my email, except I'm just so overwhelmed with my emails, and I have a whole team that manages that. So at this point, Instagram by far, if you DM me, I will, me or my team will see it, and I can connect with you that way.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today, Jenny. I really appreciate your time and insight. And I hope that this helps some people kind of get over their fear of, just starting to reach out to people and just starting to help in any way that they can.
Yeah. Connection, networking, whatever you want to do, you can do it just one by one, little by little, and everything's figure outable. Remember that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much
Bobby.
for being here.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
I really appreciated Jenny's mindset around making an impact through little contributions. It's amazing the compounding nature that smaller actions can have on you and others around you. And let's face it, it just feels good to be able to give back. It doesn't take huge leaps of faith or some big time action on your part to really make a difference. And Jenny is the epitome of this. By focusing individually on the nurses that she coaches, her authenticity shines through and the word grows. She didn't start off her podcast with the idea of getting downloads. She started it with the idea of providing a service to a community that she had already been deeply involved with building. Mentoring is a natural way for Jenny to pay it forward, but it's not necessarily for everyone. I challenge you to consider the ways that you can pay it forward, whether that's in appreciation for the career that you have or for the other great things going on in your life. That's going to do it for today's show. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Be safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.